Welcome. I'm Eleanor Silverstein, and today I'm here with wonderful Marcia Giudice. She's going to be teaching at our upcoming Feldenkrais Guild of North America conference that's going to be September 30th, October 1st, and October 2nd. And the title of her workshop is Embodied Mindfulness and what that has to do with the Feldenkrais method, right? So I'd love to hear, Marcia, what's your take on this? Where does this come from? And a little bit about what you'll be teaching and tell us a little bit why this idea gives you so much joyfulness that you want to share this with us.
Thank you. I'm glad to talk about it. I came into the Feldenkrais method 35 years ago with some stiffness, aches, and pains in my 30s, and with a background of occupational therapy. And I just loved how it made me move and feel better. And I was very focused on the physical part of it. I also have a background in yoga and teaching meditation, and somehow the worlds came together because really, when I teach awareness through movement and ask people to pay attention and treat themselves with respect and kindness and find their comfort zone as we go into exploring, that is sort of the foundations of mindfulness. So I think there's a lot of overlap, and I'm excited to look at the lessons and how you teach them, or how I teach them, through the lens of embodied mindfulness, knowing and holding that the Feldenkrais method is much more than that.
That is beautiful. Now, please, talk to us about what embodied mindfulness is, because that's a new term compared to how long the Feldenkrais method has been around.
Yes, it's become quite a buzzword, especially in trauma healing circles, because it's becoming common knowledge that healing needs to include awareness of the body. And back in the 70s, when I first took my first transcendental meditation training, you have a mantra that you repeat. So it's like in your head, or words. There's many ways that you can meditate and kind of stay in your head and have no awareness of your body. And in an awareness through movement lesson, you're guided to sense, maybe have your attention on some detail, but it's always including the whole of you and the environment you're in. And so we were in the Feldenkrais method way ahead of the game in teaching embodied mindfulness before it became a coined term. And one of the foundational pieces of people that when people teach embodied mindfulness is body scan. That's like one of the key things. And of course, that's part of all the Feldenkrais lessons.
So will you be taking one or more Feldenkrais movement lessons? And then will you be guiding us and talking to us about how that works within embodied mindfulness? Will you have discussion about it? Will you talk about it in terms of trauma or everyday life? Or is there
some of all of the above? It will be primarily experiential. And I would like to guide people in a little tiny bit of traditional meditation and see what they feel like in the moment. And then a body scan that includes maybe more, a variety of things, not just the classic Feldenkrais lesson where we feel the floor, but, including organs and the environment, just kind of opening it up to the many possibilities that one could use in their teaching or in their lives. And then I'm going to teach one awareness through movement lesson that just highlights how you might weave more mindfulness into your teaching, if that's something you want to do, or in your personal practice. But as I come to pull together stuff to teach it, it's already in the method, already there, but it can be overlooked or underutilized. So it's more just highlighting that. And then I can also talk about how it interfaces with trauma and trauma approaches or stress reduction, because Stephen Porges, in his, I think he was the one that coined the term window of tolerance, meaning we can be, our nervous system can be hypo-aroused so that we're asleep or we're groggy or collapsed, or we can be hyper stimulated and in fight, flight, freeze, or there's this window where we're curious and we're relational and we're safe, relatively safe, and blah, blah, blah. And that is the same window, I think, that we are trying to create for ourselves to learn. We want to be safe and curious and comfortable, and all the things that Feldenkrais set out as the conditions to do an awareness through movement lesson. And so I just think that's fascinating. And it took me many, many years before I could feel in my nervous system that that's enough.
Yeah.
I could be doing a lesson and I want to finish the lesson. I can do more. But when to actually meld these two ways of thinking and really sense into my nervous system when I've had enough and I'm starting to, it's so subtle sometimes. It's not that I'm in pain. It's not that I can't do it, but my nervous system has had enough and I'm starting to get out of my window of tolerance, either to go to sleep or space out on one direction or to just get overstimulated. And that's time for me to stop. So we'll also talk about how to use lessons to your best advantage by attuning to some of these things like the window of tolerance.
Well, Marcia, you open up a whole new world of conversation when you're talking about window of tolerance, right? Because we live in a world of constant stimulation. And let's say we didn't. Let's say we lived out in the nature, and nature isn't a beautiful, perfect life, right? You have to be vigilant for the sounds of cracking, snapping twigs to save yourself, in the distance, or something swooping from above. Could be a dragon, So it's all of those things in life. And it makes me think about, when you talk about the window of tolerance, that actually can grow our resilience instead of shrinking our life, saying, well, this is my window of tolerance and I can't go out of it.
Right.
Instead of thinking of it in that way, it's actually expanding our ability to have resilience in the world. So if I'm just asking, like, if we're in a relationship with somebody and somebody says, that's it, I have to cut this conversation off because it's past my window of tolerance. Let's say they threw that one out there. It's not that. It's that it's expanding, not that you're pushing your window, but it's expanding your ability to bounce back. And in that bouncing back to that place of a healthy place, it allows the window of tolerance to have breadth to it. It gets larger and smaller and larger and smaller in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's got movement, motility to it.
Yeah, it's not a firm boundary. And I think it does expand our ability to hold sensation, to have sensation. Like now we might have a certain sensation and we'd have a reaction to it. But I think this method and working like you were describing cultivates an ability to expand your both resilience to bounce back when you've gone out of it, but also to expand the boundaries to be so that you can hold a variety of experiences and not have such narrowness like you were describing. Yeah.
And will you talk about that when you're teaching the awareness through movement classes? Your class, I mean, your
Talk
work,
about which piece of it.
that part of that you can go wider in that boundary and smaller in that boundary, that it's not just a one place. Because I wonder if in Stephen Porges' idea of that window of tolerance, if people might think that it's a rigid window of tolerance, because people walk
Uh-huh.
around the world saying, those are my boundaries. And that's
Uh-huh.
probably not what he means. And in Feldenkrais, we're really about moving it, right?
Yeah, and I think we meet it and we make room for it and we get to know it and we're curious about it and we experiment. We don't just say it's this or that.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So how does your background, what got you interested in transcendental meditation yeah, right, because that is back from the 70s. I grew up in a home with TM, you know.
Yeah.
Before I mean, I knew about Moshe Feldenkrais, but my mother started transcendental meditation as soon as she came into this country, was studying it.
Yeah, I think I've always been curious about myself and wanting to learn and grow. And so experimenting with transcendental meditation or yoga and then all this stuff is just it's like I'm thirsty and it's there to drink. But I never took to the sitting still and meditating. I just never appealed. So I got into yoga, but there's things that I love about yoga and things that I don't. And when I learned about the Feldenkrais method, it was like that fit, that suited me. Um, and yeah, so that became meditation in motion, but it's so much more than that. It's not just meditate. It's not just mindful movement. You know,
Thank
it's experimenting in a way that changes your nervous system.
Wow. So if
So,
you were to just envelop it in the last couple of sentences, what would you like to say about what you're going to be teaching?
um, I would say I'm gonna, what you said it earlier, open a conversation about what is embodied mindfulness and how it's similar to and different or what than the Feldenkrais method, and how you can use awareness through movement to cultivate aspects of yourself that you want to. And it can inform you so you get more out of your Feldenkrais lessons and keep learning and growing with it. So,
Marcia, thank you. You are always wonderful in all the years that I have known you, in every aspect, in the way that you teach. You are a magnificent teacher, and you are amazing with your insight and your ability to share and to teach. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at our upcoming online conference. It's going to be wonderful.
thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you, Marcia.
Take care.
You too.